Well, hey, everybody. I thought before I go off on a little trip here to Warsaw, which is a lovely city, I would practice one last time, or one first time in this format. The talk that I'm going to give at a little executive summit, it's supposed to be a 20-minute talk to kind of open things up and, as usual, set the context for what we'll be talking about, which is organizations getting better at software, all the digital transformation stuff, the stuff that we at VMware Tanzu are interested in. Well, if you're interested in finding the show notes, I don't think there will be any for this video, but looking at all the other videos that I do here, you can go to tanzutalk.com. There's also a podcast there that is not exactly the same content. In fact, it's usually different, but you can go check that out. And then, just as a quick note, if you're really interested in this stuff, you should come to our conference, SpringOne, which is going to be in San Francisco, USA, December 6th to 8th. And there's going to be all sorts of stuff on this topic, from actual programming to more higher level executive-y stuff and DevOps and operations, all that fun cloud stuff. And if you use the discount code Coté 200, COTE 200, you can get $200 off registration. I think we'll have some of the talks and the content catalog, as they say, out in a week or two. But just remember, go to springone.io and check it out. And when you do register, use Coté 200 to get $200 off. Now, let me go over briefly. I love the old slide sorter thing. So let's, just for the purposes of this stream here, let me first make this a little bigger so we can see just a little bit more. But you can see it's 18 slides. And really, if you take out 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, you've got about, if I can do my math, that's 13 slides. And also, this is the resting slide. So you can also take this out, and that means that you've got about 12 slides, which isn't so bad for 20 minutes or so. This title, not good, but whatever. I'm gonna go with it. Now, I kind of debated if I should have a mention of my books up here. I don't really like having my bio slide at the beginning. It seems a little silly, so I'm not gonna have that. But what I'm gonna do is, first, I'm going to get some water. This is the last week my mom's going to be here in Amsterdam. She's been here all summer, 3 months, which is nice. She likes this, as you can see, the Albert Heijn mineral water with the lemon taste in it. I don't know. I'm a little on the fence. I got to figure out. Well, one, it'd be nice if the camera focused. I've got that autofocus thing on, which I guess is a bit of a problem. Let me move the microphone down. There, you can really see my face. Thankfully, I've taken a shower. Well, I don't know how to. How's that doing? Maybe if I. Well, whatever. This is life, I suppose. Oh, look! I just took a picture. That's fun. Woo! There we go. I just need to press that button there. It's a little crooked. I need to get a better stand. Whatever. I'm wasting time here. Let me just note down, because I also need to get to the airport. But don't worry, I'll make it. I know you're stressed out about it. You're wondering, when are you going to get there? I like to keep a notepad here next to the desk, a little blotter, if you will, just to write things on. And let me go into the mode here. No, not full screen. I'll have like a little me. This is a fun view, but then you can't really see the slides. I don't really understand that one, so I'm going to put my little self there. So I'm going to start this at 2:15, which means I need to end. I'm going to do math again. Get ready. At 2:35 or so. Okay. Well, thanks for having me here today. I just wanted to go over briefly my sort of summing up of how organizations are getting better at software, a stack that they're using, a 3-part stack that's based on practices, technology, and a very important type of strategy that I think is overlooked, that becomes very critical for organizations to start looking at. But what I'm going to give you a sense of is, maybe not the exact details of these things, but a lot of the direction that you're trying to go to be state, and a little bit of the mindset that people have in these three areas. And the three parts of that stack, and these are essentially actions that you take. So they're kind of posed as processes that you do, not just technologies that you install or practices that you adopt, but things that you're actually doing. First of all, if you want to get better at software, a lot of what you're doing there is changing the way that you build software, the way that you think about how software is produced in your organization. The people, the teams of developers and product managers, they become part of the business essentially, and they help craft the business and program it, as we'll get into. And this is kind of best summed up by moving from a project to a product mindset. Now, once you have that team, and not exactly once, but in order to have the team operate autonomously, deliver software frequently, and have the security and stability that you want when you're changing the way that you're doing software, when, as I'll get into, you're delivering software on a weekly basis, that requires doing your infrastructure and operations in a different way. And it really does require you to start thinking about not only running cloud type of infrastructure, but changing the way you think about the way you do operations and infrastructure, taking on a platform as a product approach to doing things, which I want to go over a little bit as well. And that stack really enables the stack above it. And then the next area, the next part of the stack, it's not necessarily like a tops down thing, but I like to go over this nowadays, one, because I've been working on a book with a coworker of mine that we've more or less finished up. We're just looking for getting it published and finished off. But in large organizations and medium-sized organizations as well, I think there's a very special thing, not unique, but something that in particular they're affected by. And that is their existing portfolio of software, the legacy software that they have, that if not dealt with, becomes something that really holds back your organization and is often a hidden hidden risk and a hidden problem that you have that, if not addressed early on, starts to become something that really damages your strategy to get better at doing software. As always, I like to overuse the word strategy, but whatever. So let me go over what this product mindset is. If you're changing from a project to a product mindset, what is product? Well, first of all, a project mindset is the way most organizations operate, maybe despite trying. And a project mindset essentially says, we know software that we want to build. We'll specify what that software is. We'll give requirements to the developers. The developers will say what kind of infrastructure that they need. We're all following a recipe of features to implement that will get deployed at a specific date, and we deploy it, and then we're done with that project. And this is the way that software has been done for many years, more or less outside of the vendor world in most organizations. And it's certainly the way that outsourcers work and other organizations like that. Now, this project mentality, I think it used to have benefits, but now the best way to go about doing software is more of a product mentality. And what you're doing with a product mentality is, instead of specifying a bunch of features and exactly what you want, you more spend time, you have shorter loops of time, and you first are discovering and exploring what it is you're solving in the first place, what issue you're working on. You think about the people using the software, whether it's programmatically or more than likely actual people using the software, the apps that you're doing. And you spend a lot of time studying what problems they have and how you can best help those users achieve the goals that they have, which then allows you to help the business achieve the goals that they have. So what you're doing here is you're putting a learning organization mindset in place, a very product type of mindset, where you are constantly going through and figuring out the best way to achieve the goals, the outcomes that you want, which may sound like what you're doing in a project mindset, but instead, in a project mindset, you're delivering what someone asks you for, right? You're not really discovering what that process is and using the capabilities and the benefits that software has to explore that. And briefly, the way this product mindset is done, not only with development, but as you'll see with operations as well, is you kind of study with the situation that you're in. You come up with a theory of what the problem is you're solving, how you would solve that problem. Now, with software, the experiment that you can run is you can write code. So you come up with a way to implement your solution to that problem. You deploy it to users, often to production, and you actually observe if it's solved the user's problem, and you come up with some, hopefully, metrics to kind of measure how well you're doing. And if you've solved their problem, you can refine it or move on to the next one. If you didn't solve their problem, you go through that loop again. And when you can go through this loop on about a weekly basis, maybe 2 weeks, but basically a weekly basis, you can see how you start to really realize that learning organization mindset with using software and the process of doing software, the software as a product mentality as the tool to do it, rather than just sort of meetings and suppositions and kind of the planning that comes with the project mindset. I think what I've learned is I'm going to skip over this slide as much as I really want to do it, but I'm going to hide it because I think I need to move to this. So let's look at how you achieve that with the software developer angle, right? And the first thing, as the title here gets to, is I'll probably still say developers, but it's not developers that we're concerned with only, it's the product teams, the team of people who own a piece of software, an app, that is not only composed of software developers, but also a product manager, someone who's determining what's happening, and hopefully, sometimes a designer and other staff. It's a team of people that, like an organization, like a company, own a specific app, a specific service, and they have ownership of that and they work on it, and they're able to go through that cycle. And let me give you an example of all of this in place. And this is from a couple of years ago, but it's from a food service company. And in this case, this food services company, they run cafeterias in addition to delivering food. And they had, the outcome that they wanted, the goal they had was to increase customer service in their kitchens, these corporate kitchens that they ran, and also increase efficiency. And the way that you they wanted to achieve most of those things was to make sure that the staff in the kitchens, the chefs and other people, were following the recipes that they had, right? So they've come up with recipes for food that they've tested that people like, and they also have figured out efficient ways of delivering it that, accounts for the speed of doing it and food waste and the cost of ingredients. And they were using paper recipe books for this. And so, of course, they wanted to digitize it and move it to iPads. Now, a project mindset would be that this was handed over to developers and they just implemented what was asked for. But instead, this product team was following a product mindset. So what they did, and again, don't think of just developers, but think of that whole product team, is they went to the kitchens and they observed what people were doing in the kitchen with the mind of achieving those goals, better customer experience and better efficiency. And what they found is that the staff were spending a lot of time measuring the temperature of mayonnaise and raw chicken. This was a task that was actually taking up a lot of time and stealing that time from, just working on the mainline things. This is probably familiar to people who work in IT, all these side projects that you work on inside things instead of the actual task. So their theory was that if they solved this problem, they sped up all of that measuring, the staff would then have time to address more consistency and, efficiency, the goals that the organization had. So indeed, they went through that cycle several times and put the solution in place. I wouldn't be telling you about it if it didn't work. And they freed up a lot of time for the staff. They validated their theory. And then the developers, the team went on to do things like put recipes on iPads and things like that. But it was this freeing up of wasted time, of toil, that really helped. It did the most help initially to achieve the goals. And that idea of discovering what you're doing and kind of going through and figuring out with software is more of what the product mindset is. And I should mention they did, kind of an Internet of Things, digitized way of measuring instead of it being more of a manual process. Now, how do you get to that point? Now, on the product teams, I've mentioned product management here, and I haven't really explicitly said doing agile software development, but there's a very well understood collection of practices that come from the agile software development world that add in a lot of lean startup thinking. And it's really this lean startup or this lean product management thinking where you introduce this idea of a loop of experimentation, of coming up with the theory, figuring out how you would measure the results, running the experiment by writing code, releasing it, and studying that feedback cycle. And a lot of what also comes from that is sizing the chunks that you do, doing it more frequently, releasing your software, but in smaller batches. Also, what comes with this, what I've observed, is following not only agile software development, but when you start using lots of the practices in extreme programming, like paired programming, and also test-driven development, things that you see here, following these practices are the things that I've seen over and over again. If you get this collection of tools, you transform the development team over. So don't just focus on we're going to do Agile, or we already do Agile, or we follow Scrum. I think it's really important to do a gimbal walk, if you will, to go out and see especially if you're in management or executives, and actually see if your teams are following these practices, because you can get certified in doing Agile or Scrum or whatever very easily, but what's key is actually following the practices. And I find that many organizations don't really follow them very much. So that's what I would emphasize you to go out and see if people are following it, and figure out a way to get people to switch over to it if they're not. So the next important key of that stack is thinking about the platform, the infrastructure that's supporting those developers, right? Because if they're delivering their software every week, you need not only the ability to get the software out of the door every week, but you need to have the stability and the security that comes with it. You have to remove a lot of the operational toil that developers normally spend a lot of time on, and that operations people spend a lot of time on as well. On a weekly cycle, developers aren't going to have time for that, and they're going to be more focused on the application, and therefore you're going to need to find a way to not only automate, but put in guardrails and templates and really help out with that. So how do you build this platform, this infrastructure that people are using? Well, the way to start, the kind of way to conceptualize it, is you think about the entire end-to-end process that developers are doing, because developers become the customer of your of your ops approach. I'm running a little short on time here. I've got probably about like 6 minutes. We'll see how I do. And looking at not only standing up the infrastructure and running it in production, but think about every single activity that developers are doing, how they're thinking about things, how the tools that they're using, how they're building and packaging their software, and how it's run and managed in production. And if you start with that, I think that normally what you'll find is that in operations, you're only focused on a few stages of that. But what you're doing as operations people, as platform engineers, is you're thinking about building this product, a platform as a product that helps your developers out. Because what developers are often doing is they're spending a lot of time on things that's not actually the application. There's a lot of toil that they spend, a lot of not only wait time, but just worrying about putting the right operational stuff and securing things in there. So that's what you start solving and working on at first, is this waste, this wait time, this operational toil that developers are putting in. And it's something that recently I worked with some of my coworkers on a survey, a developer toil survey, where you can go out and in a pretty lightweight way find what this toil is. And it's something that you can start working on as an operations person early on, to build the tools in place and make sure that the platform you have in place is supporting and removing that toil, helping your customers out, the developers. And so what this amounts to is that you're establishing a platform as a product approach, right? So if you've heard about Kubernetes and platform as a service, a PaaS, all of these types of things, you're creating a new team that's focused on more than just running your infrastructure, your VMs, and kind of managing things in production. You're thinking more as operations people like a vendor, like a cloud provider. Again, developers are your customers. And you follow practices the same way the developers are doing, where you're product managing that platform. You're working with developers, observing what they're doing, and trying to make that end-to-end process as good as possible, along with having the stakeholders. The ultimate thing that you want software to do is run well, to be stable, and of course be secure. Now, you're not only running the software that the developers are doing, but you're also running those third-party applications that your business depends on, the services that the developers are using. Whatever goes into supporting those applications, again, you're very focused on that product, the actual thing that you're trying to achieve. And there's a great case here that JP Morgan Chase went over. It's very brief, but you can get a sense of what the day-to-day work of that team looks like, as I've excerpted here, kind of the practices that they follow and the mindset that they use. And then finally, there's an actual platform that gets put in place. Many people are looking to use Kubernetes as the way that they're running this platform, right? It's a great kind of industry standard way of orchestrating, running, packaging, and coordinating container-based applications, the primary way that people write applications nowadays, or would like to write them, cloud-native applications. But what you find that you need to layer a whole lot of things on top of Kubernetes to make it ready for the developers, right? Again, you don't want developers working with Kubernetes directly, figuring out how to configure and run it. You want to move them as far away as possible for that, so they focused on the applications. So this is just an example, the platform that we have, the Tanzu application platform, but all of the platforms generally follow the same sort of patterns. That I got to fix the observability spelling there, I think. The same components. But you can start to see as you're building this product as the operations team that you're doing a lot more than just the infrastructure, right? You're thinking about all the services that developers need. You're becoming essentially a cloud provider for them. So now I just briefly want to touch on what I think is a very important thing to start addressing or worrying about from the beginning, and also to build into your process so you can avoid building up too much legacy concerns and tech debt, right? And I think of this as the legacy trap. And what this is that most large organizations, they've become successful with software that's helping run them. So they have a lot of software around, and through various reasons, that software has been neglected in favor of other things, in favor of adding new things. And it's become a little difficult to not only use to kind of interface with oftentimes like an ERP system or, things like, even older versions of your software, but it's actually holding people back from deploying new software. They have to spend time figuring out and integrating with this software, as you can see from survey results here, right? And, you probably have been in this situation or have colleagues who, it just takes so long to do what feels like should be just a quick 15-minute, piece of changing the UI or a feature that you're introducing, because there's so many dependencies you have on existing systems that are a little creaky and slow. And so this will be something that will very quickly, once you've moved beyond doing just net new greenfield applications, which are fine but not the core of your business, will start holding you back. And, this is the material that my coworker Mark Zotner and I have been working on, just kind of documenting the way that we've worked with organizations over the past, 5 or so years, of having a systematic way of not only identifying what this legacy software is, but figuring out what kind of the actual processes the software is there, instead of just all these disparate systems, and using the reasons that you're doing things, that the applications, the services that you found, and using it to prioritize which ones to start working on, right? Because you can't modernize everything at once, but you need some systematic way to figure out which of these are most valuable or most critical for us to modernize, and how would we go about modernizing them, right? I mean, the strategy goes down to, once you pick the applications, here are common practices and patterns that you use to re-architect the applications as needed and do any sort of rewriting that's needed using very proven techniques and standards there. But then also establishing a better culture and an ongoing way of thinking about modernizing your applications and avoiding that as well. Well, so that's a very brief overview of how people are modernizing their software. And again, it's brief, but I want to go over just those 3 areas, right? I think if you focus on building up your digital transformation strategy around those 3 areas, you'll do pretty well. It'll allow you to, at least for the first year and probably subsequent years, figure out how to go about doing things. Now, I'll be here throughout the rest of the day, and if there's any time for a little bit of a brief QA, the really interesting stuff comes to be the problems that people have. And these are the common areas, the most common things over the years that I've seen people encounter, and you can kind of look through them there. But they're really the issues, the hurdles that people get over as they're trying to achieve those 3 areas, which I'm happy to talk more about as we find the time today. All right, that was pretty good. I think I managed to cram that into 20 minutes, which is slightly astonishing to me. So let's see what edits I would make. And, you can ride along with the edits, because how enjoyable is that? First, did I spell observability right? I don't know why observability is in the spelling dictionary, but kudos to dictionaries. I think what I will do is move this bio slide up here because like who knows who I am, and then it also will give me the chance to say there's a lot more details in these books that I have, which will be good. Sadly, our license for this book ran out, so you can't get it for free, which seems like a bummer. We should have bought a forever license, but as my mother said the other day, that's above my pay grade. So I think we will skip over this. That is a good example. I'm just going to delete that. Having hidden slides is you're not committing enough to the idea that you shouldn't have it. And then, so here becomes a question. I think I could collapse these two slides. Developers or customers find and solve their problems. Find and solve their problems. Let's say this by optimizing the full end-to-end process. Now, this is a good example of me using this title to remind me, what? That's not auto-fitting anything. Using that title to remember what I was going to talk about. Now, why is this not wrapping? I know this isn't the most exciting thing. Surely there is resize shape, shrink text on the overflow. Yeah, there we go. And yes, their apps must still work in production and be secure. That's my little has anyone ever said they want insecure applications or unsecure? I guess insecure would be kind of nervous applications. So I think what I'm going to do, as much as I like my hand-drawn thing here, I think what I will do is more on end-to-end analysis based on, let's see, we'll put it here, more on end-to-end analysis. And then there we go. So what I'm going to do, not that I don't think anyone ever looks at my footnotes, but put that in there anyways. And then the default slide colors are sort of annoying. Okay, so eliminate that, buy some more time, and then of course I'll worry about those transitions later. I find transitions super annoying. So now we're down to 16 slides, and we end on this one. We got that guy there. Perfect. Well, I know that was thrilling for everyone, but now I have a good 20-minute recording or so, an approximation. It's nice to do these rehearsals as recordings because you can send them to people and be like, "Is that what you want me to talk about?" Little pro tip there for you. So with that, that's all there is for today. I got to get to the airport to go off to the location there. If you looked at the file name, you can guess what city I was going to, which is fine, not a big deal. But if you want to find this episode, it's where you're watching it. But also, like I said, I don't think I'll have any show notes for this. But you should really, you can go check out all the other videos. I got like 1-minute videos to 2-hour videos on all sorts of topics like this. If you go to tanzutalk.com, there's also a podcast there where we have a lot of interviews and we cover news and the sort of infrastructure and cloud native and application development space on a more or less weekly basis, depending on vacations and things. But if you go to tanzutalk.com, you can find that. You should subscribe to all the things in YouTube and Twitch, and definitely that podcast. And also, if you're really interested in this topic, if you enjoyed this talk, you should go to springone.io and check out the talks that we have coming up in 2022. December 6th to 8th. It's going to be a great conference in San Francisco. I'm going to be speaking there. I have a talk with Mark Zotner about the Legacy Trap book. So I think that will probably be the first time that we have a public talk on the topic. But there'll be many other things all the way down to programming and things like Java, Spring, and .NET, and maybe even Go and other languages, I don't know, to operational concerns, that platform engineering, as I was talking about there, and also enterprise architect and managerial executive things was kind of the basis of a lot what was going on here. But if you go to SpringOne.io, you can look up all of that. And if you want to, when you register, or I should say, if you want to register, you should use the code COTE200, that's COTE 200, and you'll get $200 off. And, you can use that $200 to have a tiny party or something like that. Go get some nice lunch or dinner instead of spending that money. Anyways, with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.